What was it? I used to be really close with one of my best friends until me and my friend group fell out. I'm going to call her Emma, which is a fake name for privacy reasons. Me and Emma used to hang out a lot outside of the friendship group together. Her mom would drop her off at my house and pick her up, etc. and all that. When we hung out, it was usually dark, so I'd let my parents know where I was going and what I was doing, just to be safe, and message every so often to let them know I'm all right. One night, Emma had come round, and we had planned to go to a woods near my house. This woods had a cool park with a big slide, and it was like this high-up wood-climbing thing right near the entrance. The plan was to pretty much go there and mess about for a bit. This was the first time we went in the woods after dark. We got there and had our phone torches on. We were blasting music from my phone and just messing about on the high-up slide bit and bridges that went along the whole play place area. It was getting really dark, so I suggested that we go back to mine or just somewhere else in general, as I have a fear of the dark and something felt off. As I started climbing down the ladder to get to the floor, I heard sounds near the bushes, like a tap, tap, tap sound as if it was raining. But there was no rain. I looked over at my friend, and she must have heard it too because I mentioned it after we left and she said it was weird. Emma came round again, and we planned, as a joke, to go walking in the woods at night. You know, just as a chill thing and to maybe mess around with dog walkers or people in the woods, all that. We got in and went the opposite side from where the park was, like way across the woods. The park was very far. On the other side of the woods, we walked down a big path, a proper flashlight in hand, as we messed about talking about school and problems in the friend group I was in at the time. Around 15 to 20 minutes down the path, we went on a different one to a clearing which was surrounded by the woods. As I flashed the light into the tree line, I saw two glowing things. Dots, maybe. I shook it off as those dog collars that lit up and assumed it was just two dogs with their owner who had gone further up the path, then their owner. We walked to the whole other side of the forest in around 15 minutes, which is pretty quick for how far we were from the park side of the forest where the main exit was, and we were walking on the side where the park was. Me and Emma had this bench next to the field, which was also surrounded by the forest, and we went there often. Emma sat down, and I flashed the torch around us, until I stopped. From behind a tree, I saw a small black figure, as if it was peering from behind the tree at me and Emma. I whispered to Emma, "We need to get on the other side of this field now." And as she got up, I looked at her and jogged across the field into the tree line. Emma followed along. I explained what I saw and she started freaking out a little, so I suggested we left and went to mine immediately. We began walking the path we were on, which would lead us to some exit as I had been here many times before. I kept flashing the light behind us and around us as we walked, making sure we were alone. How I wish I hadn't. Around the 5th time I shone the light behind us, I stopped. Emma stopped and said my name, but I just stared at what I was seeing. 2 pairs of glowing eyes flashing against the light, except I couldn't see a body. Like as if it wasn't an animal, it was just some black thing with eyes. I even zoomed the flashlight in on the eyes, but nothing really was lighting up except the pair of eyes. Now, for anyone who may be like, oh, it's just an animal or a fox or a dog, I live in Britain and foxes here usually run from humans or even noises, and there were no other people around for it to be some dog, since I called out several times to make sure, hello? Anyone there? Is this your dog? And many other things that anyone would have responded to, but silence. Emma started walking off, terrified, but I couldn't turn away from it. Soon enough, I did, and we ran across the field again and quickly left the woods. As we left and began walking down the roads to my house, I turned to her, and that's when I realized. The glowing things we saw earlier had followed us to the whole other side of the forest. I haven't been to the woods since, and it freaks me out to even think about going. I lived in a haunted house. When my mother was pregnant with me, she and my father bought a house in very rural East Germany. My father was disabled, so he couldn't work anymore, and my mother worked in the psychiatric hospital an hour away. So my father was always left alone in the house, and he hated it. He told my mother he'd hear voices and footsteps, things would move, the television would change channels, and so on. My mother always thought it was because of his medications, heart defect, diabetes, and very strong pain medications, since her go-to was always, "No, you're just stressed and tired." Since that was the same thing she told herself, and continues to say to herself to this day. When I was born, my father was terrified to let me sleep in the attic, where my room was planned to be. He made me stay in his room until his excuses wouldn't work anymore. He always said that I'd have night terrors, and so on, since my mother always did night shifts, and therefore couldn't prove him wrong. He also put me in kindergarten at 9 months old because the house creeped him out too much. The first memories I have of this house are no different. I heard the voices of men's coughing and heavy footsteps, but I didn't have such a problem with it as my father did. I didn't think they were scary for some reason. At some point, my mother didn't have as many night shifts as she did back then, so I was moved to the room on the attic. It was way louder up there. I had the same experiences as my father. My TV would switch channels, my VHS player would act up, which wasn't that weird as I was used to that and thought they just did that, and the DVD player did the same. I had drapes in front of my bed that would move every night right next to the armchair that my mother put there. One plushie kept falling off of the shelf. And I had weird dreams, always of grown-ass men. A Russian soldier, 2 men that I could never put into a category. The men in my dreams would just be normal to me, not threatening, but just there. I was so young that I didn't know that this was a whole village for the Russian military in the GDR, and once the GDR was gone, the Russian soldiers left, and Germans would buy those houses. I called them by the names they told me, which were Sasha, Heinrich, and Max. Sasha and Max would always tell me never to go into the woods without my neighbors. I didn't question it, why would I? I was 4, and my neighbors always watched me when my father was in the hospital and my mother was at work when the kindergarten was closed. The 3 would also always say never to talk to certain neighbors, which were basically all except those who watched me regularly. Once again, why would I question that? 4 years old, nice neighbors were fine, and those 3 were always nice. At one point, my mother got behind it that I experienced the same thing my father did, so she questioned my father and me separately. I described them, gave names, and told her how they talked and what they said. Hughes brushed it off until we were both going to our beach, but I said, "I know a shortcut." We had a hidden beach that you can't even see on Google Maps to this day, since it belongs to the military base next to our house. She didn't know, my dad didn't know, neighbors didn't know, no one really did. But I somehow led her to it through the forest, knew where I could and couldn't step. What could possibly be in a forest, in an area that was full of war, next to a military base of the Russians? Never hit any, never saw any explode until I was 12. But we did find a lot of those that stepped on said mines. My mom asked me where I knew, and I told her. Sasha told me. Now, at that point, she did get suspicious and did some research. Sasha was the first officer who lived there and had a heart attack. Max and Heinrich were normal people who moved there but died. Heinrich was very old, by the way, and for Max, my mother had to do more digging because she got the house from the bank. The guy that lived here before us hung himself, Max. I saw and heard them for years. Then it got less until it stopped when I moved into the room of my father when he died. but I always felt watched in that room. From the corner his bed was. Might just be paranoia. I'm 9 now and can think rationally now. There is nothing there. And those footsteps? Those aren't his footsteps he did when his feet tingled. No, it's the house settling. It's a wooden house after all. Voices at 2 a.m., mind playing tricks. Things move, must be my ADHD. After all, I regularly forget my own age and search for the remote that's in my hands. Fast forward a few more years, I have a friend over, and we both decided to stay in the attic to watch Harry Potter because my old 80s TV had the DVD player. TV turns off, must be the bad wiring, light turns on, maybe the switch wasn't fully flicked. The TV turns on again, but now my VHS is running and Nupagadi is playing. That thing was spooky when I was a toddler, so nothing new. So I tried to fix it when my friend suddenly got quiet and called my name while staring at the direction of the door. There's a mirror on the chimney that I covered. I spray paint when I was a kid 'cause mirrors are creepy. What? I swear there is someone standing. You see things? No, I don't. That's a Russian. Very funny German. I literally thought she was kidding 'cause she always called me Russian as a nickname. I was the only Russian kid in our elementary school, so my head flicked to that. Look! He's staring right at us. Now I got creeped out, turned around and... See nothing. You see someone? Yeah, how do you know he's Russian? 'Cause of the uniform. You see him? Uniform? How the hell would she see my imaginary friends? At least I thought they were imaginary friends. Sasha, go away! As a joke. A bloody joke. And then she turned to me and straight up, took her things and ran back down the stairs. She then told me that the Russian just nodded and left. She refused to go anywhere near my attic ever again and spent that night in a tent in the backyard. How the hell could she see my imaginary friend from when I was a toddler? At some point my mother asked her about this, and after a long, long talk, she told her what she saw. So once my friend was back at her home the next day, my mother parked her car after we let her out and told me that those were not imaginary friends, that she thought they were, but got convinced otherwise when she once saw my father in the hallway just staring at her, years after he died. She told me she yelled at him to go away and he just left and went back into his room, which was where he unalived and then became my room. I still don't know what the hell is up with that house, but let's just say that once I inherit it, it goes straight back to the bank. 'Cause if it really was ghosts, what do those guys in the attic really want? Why are they there? Why did they stare at my friend? Why could she see Sasha and I couldn't? But if he was bad, why did he just nod and leave her alone? Every time I go up to the attic, I feel watched. Every time I'm in my room, I feel watched. I still hear those footsteps and voices from the attic. Maybe those footsteps in my father's room were his stumping to get the blood flowing, but I do not want to know. I do not want to see him. I'd probably have the same reaction my mother had when she saw him. But I won't be keeping this house. Something has always gone wrong with this house anyway. It's expensive in the upkeep, and if ghosts are real, no thank you.